Ryan had perfected the art of invisibility. At 28, he'd spent most of his life as the guy who nodded along, who agreed to keep the peace, who swallowed his opinions like bitter pills. In the corporate world of Davidson and Associates, a mid-sized marketing firm in Seattle, this strategy had served him well enough, or so he told himself during those long, sleepless nights. The morning sun filtered through the glass walls of the conference room as Ryan sat in his usual spot, third seat from the end, close enough to seem engaged but far enough to avoid direct scrutiny. His coffee had gone cold an hour ago, but he held the cup anyway, a prop in the theater of his professional life. "This campaign is exactly what the client wants," Brad, the creative director, announced with his characteristic arrogance. "Safe, clean, forgettable, perfect for their demographic." Ryan's jaw tightened. He'd spent 3 weeks researching the client's target audience, young professionals tired of corporate blandness, hungry for authenticity. Brad's concept was everything they were trying to escape from. Around the table, heads nodded in agreement, a choreographed dance Ryan knew too well. His eyes drifted to the woman sitting across from him. Olivia Chen had joined the team 6 months ago as the new brand strategist, and she'd quickly become the one person whose presence made these meetings bearable. She had this way of tilting her head when she was thinking, her dark hair falling across her shoulder, her green eyes sharp with intelligence that seemed wasted in rooms like this. Right now, those eyes were fixed on Brad's presentation with an expression Ryan couldn't quite read. Was it agreement? Boredom? He wanted to know, wanted to ask, wanted to say so many things. "The color palette needs to feel premium," Brad continued, clicking through slides of beige and navy blue. "Nothing too bold. We don't want to alienate anyone." Ryan's fingers curled around his cold coffee cup. He thought about the focus group transcript sitting on his laptop, filled with words like authentic, brave, real. He thought about the competitive analysis showing how every brand in this space looked exactly like what Brad was proposing. He thought about how, once again, he would say nothing, and another mediocre campaign would slide into the world. "Any thoughts?" Brad asked, his tone making it clear he expected none. The silence stretched. Ryan felt it in his chest, that familiar pressure of unspoken words. He glanced at Olivia again and caught her looking at him. For just a moment, their eyes met, and he saw something there, expectation, maybe even hope. His mouth opened, then closed. The moment passed. Brad smiled his satisfied smile and moved on to budget discussions. As the meeting dragged on, Ryan felt Olivia's occasional glances like a physical touch. Each one asked the same question he'd been asking himself for years: when would he finally speak? 3 days later, Ryan stood in the kitchen of his apartment, staring at his reflection in the microwave door. His sister's voice crackled through his phone speaker, perched on the counter. "You're coming to the family dinner Sunday, right?" Emma asked. "Mom's doing her whole guilt trip thing." "Yeah, I'll be there," Ryan said automatically, though he'd been planning to use work as an excuse. "Good. Maybe this time you can actually tell Uncle Robert that his political rants make everyone uncomfortable instead of just sitting there taking it." Ryan winced. "It's not worth the fight." "Everything's not worth the fight with you," Emma said, her tone gentler than her words. "When did you become so afraid of your own voice?" After they hung up, Ryan couldn't shake her question. He poured a glass of wine and sat on his balcony, watching the city lights flicker to life. When did he become this person? He thought about college, when he'd been different, passionate, opinionated, alive. Then came the job rejections, the relationships that ended when partners told him he was too intense, the slow erosion of self-confidence that left him here, 28 and invisible. His phone buzzed. A message from Olivia, working late on the campaign revisions. "This coffee is terrible. Send help or better ideas." Ryan smiled despite himself. Over the past months, they'd developed an easy text banter, the kind of communication that felt safer than face-to-face honesty. He typed back, "The ideas in my head are probably too bold for Brad's vision." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, maybe it's time someone said them out loud. Ryan stared at the message for a long time. Was she talking about the campaign? Or something more? Monday morning brought another meeting. This time, the client was present, Harrison Fletcher, CEO of a sustainable fashion startup that was everything corporate America wasn't. He sat at the head of the table in jeans and a crisp white shirt, looking bored as Brad presented the refined campaign concepts. "I appreciate the professionalism," Harrison said when Brad finished, his tone carefully neutral. "But I'm not feeling the energy I expected. This looks like every other brand in our space." Brad's smile faltered. "We wanted to ensure broad appeal." "I don't need broad appeal. I need authentic connection." Harrison leaned forward. "What do your people really think? Not the polished pitch, the real thoughts." The room fell silent. Ryan felt his heart hammering. He looked at his laptop, at the alternative concepts he'd mocked up late at night, driven by insomnia and frustration. Bold colors. Raw messaging. Real stories from real people who gave a damn about where their clothes came from. "Ryan." Harrison's voice cut through his thoughts. "You've been quiet. What's your take?" Every eye in the room turned to Ryan. He felt heat crawl up his neck, felt the familiar urge to deflect, to agree, to disappear. Brad's expression was already shifting into defensive mode. The other team members looked curious, or perhaps pitying. Then Ryan saw Olivia. She wasn't looking at him with pity or curiosity. She was looking at him with something that felt like belief. "Honestly?" Ryan's voice came out rougher than intended. He cleared his throat. "I think we're making a mistake." Brad's eyebrows shot up. "Excuse me?" Ryan's hand trembled as he opened his laptop, turning it so the screen faced the room. "I've been looking at the research. Your target demographic, Gen Z and young millennials in urban markets, they've been burned by greenwashing and corporate virtue signaling. They're skeptical, smart, and they can smell inauthenticity a mile away. Which is why we're keeping it professional," Brad started. "Professional isn't the same as authentic." The words came faster now, pushed by years of pressure. "This campaign makes you look like every other brand trying to capitalize on sustainability. Safe. Polished. Forgettable." That's exactly what Brad said we were going for, and that's exactly the problem. Ryan clicked through his alternative mock-ups. Stark photography. Real people in their real clothes, wearing them until they fell apart. Bold copy that didn't apologize for challenging fast fashion. Prices displayed honestly, explaining exactly why ethical manufacturing costs more. "This is what I think we should do. Show the mess. Show the complexity. Don't pretend sustainability is easy or simple or pretty. It's hard, it's expensive, it requires sacrifice. And the people who care about it want brands that respect their intelligence enough to tell them the truth." The silence that followed felt different from the usual silences. Ryan's heart pounded so hard he thought everyone must hear it. He just publicly contradicted his supervisor, criticized the entire approach, and laid out his own vision without permission. Career suicide, probably. Harrison Fletcher leaned back in his chair, a slow smile spreading across his face. "Now that's what I'm talking about." "With all due respect," Brad interjected, his voice tight, "Ryan's concepts are too risky. They could alienate. They could alienate people who were never going to buy from me anyway," Harrison interrupted. "This," he gestured at Ryan's screen, "this understands what we're trying to do. This is honest." He looked at Brad, then back at Ryan. "I want to see more of this direction." Brad's face had gone through several shades of red. "I'll need to discuss this with my team." "I'd like Ryan to lead the discussion," Harrison said firmly. "If that's acceptable." The meeting ended shortly after, with Harrison asking Ryan to stay behind for a more detailed conversation. As the others filed out, Ryan caught Olivia's expression. She was smiling, not a polite professional smile, but something genuine and warm that made his chest tight. Brad left last, his goodbye clipped and cold. Ryan knew there would be consequences for this, but as he began explaining his vision to Harrison in detail, he found he didn't care as much as he'd expected. After an hour, Harrison stood and shook Ryan's hand firmly. "I want a full deck by Friday. Bold, honest, real. Can you do that?" "Yes," Ryan said, and meant it. Ryan was still buzzing with adrenaline when he returned to his desk. His email was already filling up. Brad had called a strategy alignment meeting for tomorrow morning, which definitely meant damage control and probably meant a lecture. Maybe worse. He should have felt afraid. Instead, he felt alive. That was incredible. Ryan looked up to find Olivia standing by his desk, holding 2 cups of coffee. She set one down in front of him. "I've been waiting 6 months to see you do that." "Do what? Commit career suicide? Speak the truth." She pulled up a chair, sitting closer than professional courtesy usually dictated. "Do you know how exhausting it is watching someone with real talent bite their tongue every single meeting? I kept thinking, if he just said what he was thinking, everything would be different." Ryan took the coffee, using it to mask his reaction to her proximity. She smelled like jasmine and something else he couldn't name. "You knew I disagreed? Ryan, you make this face." She gestured at her own expression, scrunching up her nose. "Whenever Brad says something particularly ridiculous. It's very subtle, but I noticed it the second week I was here. I kept wondering if you'd ever actually voice what that face was saying." "Why didn't you say something?" "Because it wasn't my place to push you." Olivia's smile softened. "But I hoped you would. I've been in meetings where I watched you physically stop yourself from speaking. Your mouth would start to open, then you'd close it and look away. Every time, I wanted to ask what you were going to say." Ryan felt exposed in a way that should have been uncomfortable but wasn't. Most of the time, it didn't seem worth the conflict. And now? He thought about Harrison's handshake, about the creative deck he'd get to build, about the feeling of finally saying what he meant. "Now I'm wondering why I waited so long." Olivia set down her coffee, her green eyes serious. "Can I be honest with you about something? Please." "I was planning to leave. I got an offer from a competitor, better title, more money. I was going to accept it this week." She paused, her gaze steady. "The only reason I was hesitating was because of you." Ryan's heart stopped. "What?" "These last 6 months, you've been the only person here who seems to actually care about doing good work. Everyone else is just playing politics or coasting, but you, even when you didn't speak up, I could see you cared. I kept thinking if I could just get you to trust yourself, to use that voice you keep locked away, we could actually make something meaningful together." "Together?" She reached across the desk, her fingers brushing his. "What you did in there today? That's the person I hoped you were. And I couldn't believe what you said, not because it was surprising that you had those thoughts, but because you finally trusted yourself enough to share them." Her smile turned playful. "Also, your concepts are brilliant, and if you think I'm leaving now and missing the chance to work on this campaign, you're out of your mind." Ryan turned his hand over, properly holding hers. 6 months of careful professional distance dissolved in an instant. "You're staying?" "On one condition." Her thumb traced small circles on his palm, sending electricity up his arm. "You keep being this honest. Not just in meetings, about everything. No more hiding behind that careful, neutral mask. That's terrifying. Most worthwhile things are." She stood but didn't let go of his hand. "Come on." "Where?" "Conference room C. It's always empty after 5. We're going to start outlining this campaign, and you're going to tell me every wild, risky, honest idea in that head of yours." They worked until the cleaning crew arrived at 9, sprawled across the conference room with laptops, notebooks, and coffee cups scattered between them. Ryan had never created anything like this, raw and real, with someone who pushed him to go further instead of pulling him back to safety. "What about showing production?" Olivia suggested, pulling up images on her laptop. "Not the sanitized version. The actual factories, the workers, the complexity of ethical supply chains." Ryan leaned over to see her screen, close enough that their shoulders touched. Neither moved away. Yes. Make it a series. This is what your clothing costs. Show exactly where the money goes. People might not like seeing how expensive ethical production is. The right people will respect us for showing them. Ryan added notes to their shared document. We're not trying to convince everyone. We're trying to find our people and tell them the truth. Olivia smiled at him, that same genuine expression from earlier. I love how you think. I have since the first meeting I attended, when you made that face at Brad's millennial pink suggestion, and I knew we were going to be friends. Friends? The word came out before Ryan could stop it. She set down her laptop, turning to face him fully. I was hoping for friends as a starting point. But honestly? She moved closer, her voice dropping. I've been attracted to you since day one. I just didn't think you'd ever notice because you were so busy staying invisible. Ryan's breath caught. I noticed. I just didn't think I had anything to offer. The silent guy who agrees with everything? You're right, him, I wasn't interested in. Her hand found his again. But the man who stood up in that meeting today? Who risked his comfortable position to speak truth? Who has been hiding all this passion and intelligence and creativity behind a mask of politeness? She leaned in, her lips inches from his. Him, I can't stop thinking about. Ryan closed the distance between them, kissing her with all the honesty he'd been holding back. She responded immediately, her hands sliding into his hair as the kiss deepened. It felt like falling and flying at the same time, terrifying and exhilarating and right. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Olivia laughed softly. I've wanted to do that for months. Why didn't you? Because you weren't ready. You had to find your voice first. She traced his jaw with her fingertips. And God, it was worth the wait. They kissed again, slower this time, exploring. Ryan felt layers of pretense falling away with each touch. This was what it meant to be truly seen, not just the careful facade he'd constructed, but the real person underneath. Take me home, Olivia whispered against his lips. They barely made it through Ryan's apartment door before they were pulling at each other's clothes, mouths hungry and hands exploring. Every kiss was a conversation they'd been too afraid to have, every touch a truth finally spoken. When they finally made it to his bedroom, tangled together in the sheets, Olivia looked at him with such open desire it took his breath away. No more hiding, she said, straddling him, her hair falling around them like a curtain. Not from me, not from yourself. No more hiding, he agreed, pulling her down into another kiss. Afterward, they lay wrapped around each other, the city lights painting patterns across the ceiling. Olivia traced lazy patterns on his chest. What happens tomorrow? Ryan asked. Brad's going to make this difficult. Let him. You have Harrison's support. You have your talent. You have me. She propped herself up on one elbow, looking down at him seriously. But more importantly, you have yourself now. That's what changed today, not that you spoke up once, but that you remembered you can. You don't need permission to use your voice, Ryan. It's been yours all along. He pulled her closer, kissing her forehead. I couldn't believe what you said when I finally spoke my mind. What did I say? That you'd been waiting for it. That you saw me, even when I was trying to be invisible. That the real me was worth waiting for. Olivia smiled against his chest. I told you the truth. That's what we do now, right? Tell each other the truth? Always. The next morning, Ryan walked into Brad's strategy alignment meeting with Olivia beside him. Brad's expression was glacial, his tone clipped as he outlined the concerns about deviating from their established process. Ryan listened, then calmly presented his vision, backed by research and genuine passion. The meeting ended with Brad assigning him the project lead, not because Brad wanted to, but because Harrison had made it clear that's what he expected. As they left, Olivia squeezed Ryan's hand. How does it feel? Ryan thought about it, really thought about it. The fear was still there, the uncertainty about how this would play out. But underneath it all was something solid and true, his own voice, finally unleashed. Terrifying, he admitted. And absolutely right. She kissed him quickly, not caring who saw. Get used to it. Because I plan to keep challenging you to be this honest about everything. Everything? Everything. Her eyes sparkled. Starting with telling me what you really think about my apartment's color scheme when you see it tonight. Ryan laughed, feeling lighter than he had in years. Speaking his truth had cost him his comfortable invisibility, but it had given him something infinitely more valuable, himself, and someone who loved him for it. As they walked back to their desks, already planning the campaign that would be the most honest thing either of them had ever created, Ryan realized Emma had been right. The question wasn't when he'd become afraid of his own voice, it was why he'd waited so long to reclaim it. But he wasn't waiting anymore.